lot of really fun movies from the 80s and 90s are tough to get decent copies of. We've dug into a bunch of them here on JoBlo Originals, and while some of the stories have happy endings, such as No Escape getting re-released, other films seem all but doomed to languish until a niche label like Arrow Video, Kino Lorber, or maybe Unearthed Films comes along and gives them the TLC they deserve. So, what's the title we're worried is gone forever here at JoBlo? A really cool little thriller from 1991 called Ricochet, which has a pretty impressive pedigree. The movie stars Denzel Washington, John Lithgow, Ice-T, Kevin Pollack, and the Bionic woman herself, Lindsay Wagner, while it's directed by Highlander's Russell Mulcahy and is produced by Joel Silver, and is even written by Die Hard Stephen E. Souza. And in fact, the film takes place in the same universe as Die Hard, with Mary Ellen Trainor reprising her role as Snoopy TV reporter Gail Wallens, because this is produced by, of course, Joel Silver, who produced Die Hard. Indeed, Ricochet was an early attempt to mold Denzel Washington into an action hero. He had already nabbed an Oscar for Glory, but he didn't have any massive box office hits under his belt. In it, Denzel is perfectly cast as a hotshot LAPD rookie named Nick Stiles, who on a routine patrol comes face to face with a psychotic hitman named Earl Talbot Blake, who's played by John Lithgow. Stiles manages to defuse a hostage situation and arrest Blake in an incident that's videotaped by a bystander who sells it to the news. And overnight, the young, handsome Stiles becomes a celebrity cop, and eventually even becomes the assistant DA of Los Angeles, with a bright future in politics ahead of him, plus a lovely family that includes his beautiful wife Alice, played by Victoria Dillard, and two adorable daughters. Ooh, but Nick's got a big problem. Furious at Stiles for getting the upper hand on him, Blake has spent 8 years training and making alliances in prison in order to escape and wreak havoc on Stiles' life. You see, he doesn't want to kill Stiles, far from it. He basically wants to cancel Stiles in the days before canceling, ruining his life and leaving him a shell of a man, and eventually landing him in jail. Now, Ricochet is a great little movie, but boy, is it ever wild, and I can see why critics might not have known what to make of it in 1991, as it is truly unhinged. What's fascinating about it is that Denzel Washington's Stiles, while the hero of the film, isn't really the lead. This is more like Cape Fear in that the psycho, played by John Lithgow, actually has more screen time, and it's all about his revenge. Lithgow has rarely been better than he is here. While none of us really considers him a tough guy, Lithgow actually got into shape for the role and changed his look, and is utterly convincing as the badass hitman who loses his mind in jail. His odyssey towards revenge is what director Russell Mulcahy and the screenwriter Stephen E. Souza focus on. There are some truly gonzo scenes, such as a moment where Lithgow has a prison sword fight, using Books' armor with an Aryan Nation soldier played by Jesse the Body Ventura. Mulcahy shoots the sequence like it's Highlander, complete with sparks as the swords hit each other, plus an epic score by Alan Silvestri. It's completely insane, but also really cool. Mulcahy really does seem to be having a total ball with this film, ramping up the violence to such a degree that it was very clearly cut before it hit theaters, as it was apparently so extreme that it landed the studio in NC-17. Lithgow's parole board escape is especially gruesome, while de Souza's dialogue is an off-kilter blast. Meanwhile, Denzel Washington grounds the film by being utterly convincing as Stiles. His million-dollar smile and megawatt charisma is on full display here, and he's very believable in the part. I mean, you buy that the smart, good-looking Stiles would become a celebrity and would make an amazing DA. Indeed, Denzel has famously played many lawyers in movies over the years. You even buy him as a family man, as he looks like a guy who could take care of himself in a fight, but also seems like a loving partner and a loving father. The interesting thing is, he actually gets very little action until the final showdown with Blake, which in a lot of ways makes it more exciting to watch. The supporting cast is fun too, with Kevin Pollack and Ice-T as D-Wash's loyal buddies. Pollack plays his cop partner, a true blue pal, who sticks with him during his brutal come-down, with Brown setting up Stiles to look like a heroin-addicted pedophile. He even gets him depicted with VD in a disturbing sequence. But Pollack sticks by him, even if you know, well, he's probably too pure of a character to not meet a grim end. Pollack even bursts out his legendary William Shatner impression at one point, with Denzel cracking up in a way that feels legitimate.
So he says, "You're a freak, Spock." "Oh, freak! You belong in a circus." "Right. Next, the dark-faced bull." You think they're pretty good.
Meanwhile, Ice-T plays a buddy of Denzel's from when he was a kid, who's now a gangster, albeit one with a conscience, who of course helps out with his pal when push comes to shove. Now in the end, Ricochet wasn't a particular hit. It made about $21 million in theaters, which isn't that bad for 1991, but it wasn't really the kind of movie that was going to make Denzel Washington a superstar, and it kind of got ignored when he went back to drama. He had a couple pretty big hit movies in the years following Ricochet, like The Pelican Brief and Philadelphia, and he would try to become an action star again in Virtuosity, but by that point, I guess he had maybe been a little bit overshadowed by Wesley Snipes, who, of course, was a cool black action star and was doing kind of similar movies. But of course, Denzel's time would come, especially in the early 2000s. I think probably when he made Man on Fire with Tony Scott was the time when Denzel truly became an action star. And of course, he's probably one of the greatest action stars of all time at this point, or really one of just the greatest stars of all time, period. So why is Ricochet so hard to find? So here's the thing, it was put out by Warner Brothers in theaters, and if they had owned the rights to the film, I bet it would be really easy to get on digital, it'd be out on Blu-ray, it'd be fine. But it was actually a co-production with HBO back when they were making theatrical films, and the rights kind of got tied up to the point that it's not really clear who actually owns the home video rights to the film. So it has a very bad non-anamorphic DVD from the late 90s that is almost unwatchable, and it has never been issued on Blu-ray or digital for purchase. The only copy that you can get that's kind of floating around out there is one that somebody ripped off of Cinemax. And unfortunately, it's not even in the right aspect ratio. It's in 1:78:1, which is, of course, the widescreen TV ratio. And Cinemax at the time was always formatting movies like this, so you can't even find it in a scope presentation, which is really too bad because this is a super fun movie that actually holds up pretty well, especially considering how big of a star Denzel Washington became and how much of a cult icon John Lithgow became for, his many years and many great roles. There's nothing really objectionable in it. It's completely insane and ultra-violent, but I think that audiences would probably like it even more now than they did back in 1991. So it really seems like a no-brainer for somebody to find and put out on Blu-ray and digital. And wow, wouldn't it be fun if John Lithgow and Denzel Washington were to do a commentary track for this? I bet the two guys would have a field day. So Ricochet, great little movie. Really hope we see a legitimate copy soon.